Hello everyone. Today we will gain some basic knowledge about contract laws through some basic multiple choice questions. So without wasting any time, let's start with it. A stipulation in a bond for payment of compound interest on a failure to pay simple interest at the same rate as was payable upon the principal is not a penalty within the meaning of which of the following sections. Options are A. Section 74 of the Indian Contract Act 1872, B. Section 75 of the Indian Contract Act 1872, C. Section 76 of the Indian Contract Act 1872, or D. None of the above. The correct answer to this question is option A. That means to say, under Section 74 of the Indian Contract Act 1872, it is stipulated that a bond for payment of compound interest on the failure to pay simple interest at the same rate as was payable upon the principal is not a penalty. The next question is, a sub-bailee is a person to whom the actual possession of good is transferred by someone. Options are A. Who is not himself not an owner of the goods. B. Who has present right to the possession of them as a bailee of the owner. C. Both A and B, and D. None of these. The correct answer to this question is option C. That means to say both A and B are correct. Which means that a sub-bailee is a person to whom the actual possession of good is transferred by someone who is not an owner of the goods and who has a present right to possession of them as bailee of the owner. The next question is, a successful plaintiff is an action of denture that is therefore entitled to the return of the goods or recovery of its value and damages for the detention and is entitled to have been assessed separately. Options are A. The value of the goods at the date of assessment. B. Damages sustained by him up to that date. C. Both A and B, or D. None of these. The correct answer to this question is option C. That is, both A and B are correct, which means that the value of goods at the date of assessment and the damages sustained by him up to that date is to be returned and assessed separately. The next question is, the extent of an agent's authority, whether expressed or implied, depends upon which of the following. Options are A. The nature or the business for which he has been appointed. B. Things which are incidental to the business or are usually done in carrying it out. C. The usual customs and the usages of the trade. Or D. All of them. The correct answer to this question is option D. That is, all of them. Which means that the extent of an agent's authority depends upon the nature of the act or the business for which he has been appointed, things which are incidental to the business or are usually done in carrying it out, and the usual customs and the usages of the trade. Next question is, the English Unfair Trade Contract Act 1977 covered terms regarding. Options are A. Marking the liability or its enforcement subject or restrictive or onerous conditions. B. Excluding or restricting any right or remedy in respect of liability or subjecting a person to any prejudice in consequence of his pursuing any right or remedy. C. Excluding or restraining rules of evidence or procedure. Or D. All of them. The correct answer to this question is option D. That is, all of them. Which means that the English Unfair Trade Contract Act 1977 covers terms regarding marking the liability or its enforcement subject to the restrictive or onerous conditions, excluding any right or remedy in respect of liability or subjecting a person to any prejudice in consequence of his pursuing any right or remedy, and excluding the rules of evidence or procedure. The next question is, the duty of disclosure is limited to the cases of which of the following? Options are A. Unusual features of transaction. B. Unusual features of risk. C. Both A and B. or D, none of these? The correct answer to this question is option A. That is, the duty of disclosure is limited to the cases of unusual features of transaction. The next question is the doctrine of privity means options are A. That a person cannot acquire rights to liabilities arising under the contract to which he is not a party. B. That a person cannot be subject to liabilities arising under the contract to which he is not a party. C. That a contract between A and B can affect the legal rights of C indirectly, or D. All of them. The correct answer to this question is all of them. That means the doctrine of privity means that a person cannot acquire rights to liabilities arising under a contract to which he is not a party, as well as a person cannot be subject to liabilities arising under the contract to which he is not a party, and that a contract between A and B can affect the legal rights of C indirectly. The next question is the defense of invalidity of contract for non-compliance of Article 299 must be specifically pleaded unless it is patent from the allegation in the plaint or evidence adduced by the plaintiff. This question has arisen in the following types of cases. Options are A. Cases under sections like 7 Clause D and 9A of the Representation of Peoples Act 1951 in connection with disqualification from being elected to the Parliament of State Legislature. B. When the contracts did not comply with the exact requirements of the Article 299 Clause 1. C. Contracts entered in exercise of statutory powers. Or D. All of them. The correct answer to this question is option D. That is, all of the above are correct pertaining to the question. The next question is the conditions which entitle an agent to exceed his authority under the doctrine of necessity are what? Options are A. That he could not communicate with his principal. B. That the course he took was necessary in the sense that it was in the circumstances the only reasonable and prudent course to take. C. That he acted bona fide in the interest of the parties concerned. Or D. All of them. The correct answer to this question is option D. That means all of the above occur correct. That means to say the agents are allowed to exceed their authority in the conditions like where they are not able to communicate things with their principal, that the course they took was necessary in the sense that it was the circumstances and the only reason and prudent course of action to take, and that the agent acted bona fide in the interest of the parties concerned. The next question is the consideration for a family arrangement may be preservation of family property, preservation of peace and honor of the family, or the avoidance of litigation, or avoiding of the possibility of the future dispute. In which of the following cases it was held? Options are A. Sundar Sahu Ganatia versus Chamra Sahu Ganatia. B. Dharampudi Nagarotamba versus Kuruku Ramya. C. Balbhadir Prasad versus Dhanpat Dayal. Or D. None of these. The correct answer to this question is option A. That means to say, in the case of Sundar Sahu Ganotia versus Chamra Sahu Ganotia, it was held that for the consideration of the family arrangement may be the preservation of family property, preservation of peace and honor of the family, of the avoidance of the litigation, or avoiding the possibility of future dispute. The next question is the capacity of the woman to contract is not affected by her marriage. Under which of the following acts? Options are A. The Hindu law, B. The Muhammadan law, C. Both A and B, or D. None of these. The correct answer to this question is option C. That means to say both A and B. That is, both in Hindu law and Muhammadan law, the capacity of a woman to contract is not affected by her marriage or marital status. The next question is an agreement is not enforceable by law is said to be what? Options are A. Illegal contract, B. Voidable contract, C. Quasi contract, or D. Void contract. The correct answer to this question is option D, that is, an agreement that is not enforceable by law is a void contract. The next question is, one of the following is not correct. Identify and choose the correct ones. Options are A. Agreement and restraint of legal proceeding is void. B. Agreement influenced by coercion is void. C. Agreement which is ambiguous is void. Or D. Agreement and restraint of marriage is void. The correct answer to this question is option B. Agreement influenced by coercion is void is not a correct statement. The next question is, when a minor becomes a partner on attaining majority, his liability commences from which date? Options are A. From the date of majority, B. From the date of his admission to the benefits of the partnership firm, C. From the date on which 6 months will expire from the date of attaining majority by minor, or D. From the date fixed by all the partners. The correct answer to this question is option B, that is, from the date of his admission to the benefits of the partnership firm, his liability commences. Next question is, which of the following is generally referred to as subtle species of fraud? Options are A. Coercion, B. Deliberate mistake, C. Undue influence, or D. Misrepresentation. The correct answer to this question is option C, that is, undue influence is generally referred as subtle species of fraud.